Welcome to Why People and Search Engines Hate Your Website. My name is Lorraine Ball and my company Roundpeg designs websites. And today I'm going to share with you some of the most common mistakes that we see in website design. We're going to talk about the 4 places where your website can be failing. We're going to talk about design, content, search, and conversion. Number 1, mobile responsive. Not too long ago, we were talking to companies about making the transition to mobile responsive design. And I really thought that by now, most companies had gotten it. But we still see a lot of websites that look like this. Here's the desktop version, and here's the mobile. It's exactly the same information. This is not mobile responsive. This is mobile adaptive. What they've done is they've simply shrunken everything down so you can see everything on the screen. Isn't that great? No, it's not. And this happens to be a site that we're going to be revising very shortly. No one wants to sit there and make part of the website they want to see bigger, because here's the truth. When you're on a mobile device, there are different things that you're looking for. This is what happens when you shift from mobile adaptive to mobile responsive. You start to think about your website differently. On a desktop, it's okay to have columns side by side. But on mobile, one of those 2 columns is going to go on top and the other one is going to go below. Everything doesn't just get smaller. The positions actually switch around. And so you have to think about vertical hierarchy. You have to pick a favorite child. If you can't decide between the 2 or 3 products or services that you sell and which one is going to be on top and which one is going to be underneath, guess what? Your website will decide for you. Something will be displayed first on your mobile responsive website. The second thing that you have to do when it comes to design, and this is where we see so many mistakes, is with cluttered navigation. Everyone is working with what I call a file drawer mentality. You know, you get a piece of paper and you don't want to throw it away, so you put it in a file and you shove it in a drawer. And you think you filed it away logically, but anyone who has ever taken over a job from someone else knows that nobody else's filing system makes sense. And so as the technology has improved and search has improved, that cluttered 2 and 3 level navigation is going away. People don't want to mess with your drop downs. They want to be able to search and they want to find the information that they're looking for. The next thing is you got to say goodbye to irrelevance. There's a lot of things that we put on our websites because we think it needs to be there, because somebody says, oh, put it on the website. And so we create a box or a call to action, or we shove it in a sidebar. But it doesn't really need to be there, and no one is really looking at it, and so it's time to let go. We need to let go of cheesy stock photography also. Way back, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, you put an image on a page to kind of brighten it up because it was all just text. But there are so many more things that we can do with design that we can get rid of the cheesy photos. We can get rid of the handshake. Everybody knows you know how to do a handshake, but we can get rid of these photos. We can say goodbye to the one-handed desperate, please shake my hand. Or the two-handed grip, I really want to hold on to you. We can also get rid of the images of people writing on the wall. Everybody has these stock photography images. It doesn't make your site look unique or interesting. And unless you are the Purdue Agricultural Department, you do not need pictures of plants growing. And most plants won't actually grow from your hand. And finally, no more photos of people who don't work for your company. The truth is that real beats perfect every day. Yes, we all wish that we had this well-tailored, good-looking group of diverse people working for us. We didn't, however, want them to all have blank sheets of paper in their hand, but these are not your employees, and I know that. So let's take them off your website and put real pictures of real people. Under the topic of irrelevance are also sidebars. A few years ago, when you designed a website, all of your interior pages looked the same. That meant you had to have the same sidebar on every single page. But you don't anymore. Now you can have different sidebars and relevant. If the award isn't important, put it on the page. If the contact form is important, put it on the page. And if it's not, give me a clean, simple, wide page with just the information I need. Now, one word of caution: on a mobile device, the text will automatically adjust. But on large desktop monitors, this text is going to get very wide. And so if you are using full width, you may want to give some really nice margins on either side. About 795 pixels is really the ideal width for your full width image. Wider than that, and it's really hard to kind of read the text without getting lost. And words matter. As you move off of design and onto content, number one, you need to think about who you're talking to. You need to get rid of text that's really kind of chest thumpy, that's really us, we, aren't we terrific, and really talk to your customers. Talk about the things that are important to them. We did an interesting experiment, and we looked at websites created by many of our competitors, and we tried to figure out what their business models were and who their target customers were based on just the cover image and text on their website. Freelance WordPress development. It was really easy to figure out that this particular web developer was focused on other web companies. His conversation about PSD to web WordPress and some of the other phrases that he chose made it really clear that he was not trying to sell his services to the average business owner. His words clearly told you that if you were looking for someone to help you with your web design because you as a web design firm were a little overloaded, he was the guy to go to. In contrast, this company does a really good job of talking to their customers. The words they choose are very compelling. Increase your sales and profitability. They're talking about the benefit of working with them. And then in smaller print, you see how they're going to do it. This company focuses on companies that are looking to improve their website. Level up your website. Take it to that next level. It's clever phrasing, but it really doesn't do as good a job as this one. Increase your sales and profitability. Why? Because people lay in bed wondering how they're going to increase their sales and profitability. They don't lay in bed hoping to level up their website. That's a concept or an idea that they may get to after they've had a conversation with this company. This one I think is good, but not necessarily as strong as the first one. They're talking about growing revenue and sales, but their emphasis is on the word smart, not revenue. What's more important to your customer, smart or revenue? I think they missed an opportunity to really focus. Here, this company does web design, but they also do a lot of brainstorming and strategy. And so their messaging about unleashing creative potential in your people is interesting. But again, I would argue that that may not necessarily be why companies come to them. That may be how they ultimately describe the interaction afterwards. And this one I think is really clever. It is a very strong, very in-your-face message. 90% of buyers never respond to cold outreach. Kind of tells you you shouldn't be doing it. And then as you go down the page, they tell you how you should be approaching B2B buyers. So what does your content say about your business and your business model? Is it customer focused? One way to be sure whether it is or not is to print out the content from several pages on your website. In one hand, hold a blue pen, and in the other, hold a red. Every time you see a first-person reference, I, we, our business, our approach, circle it in red. Every time you find a reference to your customer in second-person language, you, your business, companies like you, go ahead and circle it in blue. And then add up the red circles and add up the blue circles. If there's more blue on the page than red, great. You've got customer-focused content. If there's more red than blue, you got some work to do in terms of rewriting your copy to bring customers in. As you're presenting words and content on your website, think about bite-sized pieces of information. Information that people can read quickly and grasp what your business is about. And then think about information at a glance. Use headers and footer and subheads to really divide up that content so people can quickly scan pages and find what they're looking for. Now, this last suggestion may seem a little counterintuitive when I talk about bite-sized information and information at a glance, but it's not. One of the most powerful buttons on your website is Read More. And when I click Read More, I want to go to a page on your website that has that rich, in-depth information. And so for the customer or the prospect that needs more information, deep content is very important. None of this will do you any good if people can't find your website. When people go to a search engine and they type in a word or a phrase, they're going to look at the information on page 1 and they're not really going to flip to page 2, 3, or worse yet, 4. And so part of your mission as you're redesigning your website is to move up in the rankings, to be more and more visible on page 1. And to do that, you have to win the battle for search. Now, the truth is that search engines are constantly updating their rules and their algorithm, and it is a race to stay in one step ahead. But there are some things that you can do to stay in the game. The first is to keep your keywords in balance. You do not want to have a page that is nothing but keyword after keyword after keyword, all stuffed in there in random order. Go ahead and do a search for common keywords. Use the Google tool not only to find the primary keyword, but some suggestions on synonyms. Web design may be your keyword, but you may also want to look for phrases and use phrases like website developer, designers of websites, web design tools, or WordPress. And so using a variety of phrases and using the synonyms not only will make your content more interesting to search engines, it'll make it significantly more relevant for human beings to read. And use natural language. Use phrases that are similar to the way you would explain what you do if you were talking to someone. Search engines are getting smarter and smarter, and when they see pages that are nothing but robot text that really feel like they were just cranked out by a machine, they skip over it, and they jump instead to pages that have a rich, deep purpose, lots of good content, and interesting language. And every page on your website should have a purpose. And so what that means is that as you add new content, you want to have different titles and different descriptions, because if you have 2 or 3 pages that all have the same title, how will the search engines tell them apart? And how will prospective customers tell them apart? And your meta descriptions are important. They should include keywords and phrases. You want to update your content frequently. Recent content counts. If a search engine scans and indexes your website and then comes back 2 weeks later and nothing has changed, that robot will be less likely to come back and crawl your site. So frequent updates, this is why blogging is so important, because it gives you an opportunity to do several things. Add new content to your website. Add new uses for your keywords. Create longer, more in-depth stories, and have a niche post that reaches a very specific audience. And last but not least, relevant links. Although Google doesn't count them as much as they did before, links to other informative and authoritative sites still add value. And links between pages on your website add value as well. And finally, conversion. Is there a clear call to action? Is there a purpose to every page? And when I say is there a purpose, I have finished this page. What's my next step? Where do I go next? Do I learn more, buy, try, donate, contact, schedule? What am I supposed to do when I get to the bottom of the page? Every page doesn't necessarily have to have a button, but a link or an action. What am I supposed to do now? Because if you don't tell me what I'm supposed to do as a visitor, I may very well leave. The other thing I really want you to think about in terms of conversion are your actual buttons. Are they commanding? One of the things you'll notice about all of these buttons is there's all caps. Now, I'm not really a big fan of all caps because I always feel like you're yelling at me. But when it comes to conversion points, when it comes to your action buttons, do them in all caps. Yell at people. You want them to take that next step. Another thing is you're thinking about your buttons, you really want to go for high contrast. You want to be sure people can read the words and that they are drawn in by the colors. So bright colors, colors that are in contrast to the rest of the information on the page. Buttons that stand up and say, do something. I wish I could tell you that this was a website that had been updated. It hasn't. It still exists. There are still lots of websites that look like this. They're confusing and there's no clear action. I don't know, there's links, there's pictures, what am I supposed to do next? This page is a little bit better, but it's still not perfect. There are clear buttons, but they're kind of a little buried over here on the side, and this get a quote is really what this customer wants you to do, but it is equal in size to some of these association buttons which really aren't that important. This is one of my favorite websites that we had designed last year, and what I like about it is it's very clear. At the very top there is a request a demo. If you're not convinced, there's some information in the middle, and then down here again request a demo in a different form. This is a great structure for a home page. This is what you're supposed to do when you come to our website. Not convinced? Here's some other stuff. But this is really what we want you to do. Conversion tips. Think about every page on your website as a landing page. There is a logical next step. Give people information in little bites and limit their choices. Do not have 2 or 3 competing buttons on the same page. And no way out. When I get to the bottom of the page, this is where I'm supposed to go next. And at the end of the day, if you want to figure out whether people and search engines love or hate your website, take a look at the numbers. Measure your results. Look for indications of more people coming to your website. Look at where they're coming from, and then look at what they do when they get there. Do you have more visits than last year? And I always recommend that people look year over year and not month over month. We all have seasonality in our business. For some industries, it's more dramatic than others, but the seasonality exists. And so compare yourself to the same period a year ago and see, do you have more people coming? Take a look at where people are coming from. Organic, direct, referrals, social, and email. And then set your tactics to attack your problem areas. If you do not have direct traffic, if people are not going to the internet and typing in www.yourwebsite.com, it means you need to be doing more offline activity. You need to be handing out more business cards. Maybe you need to be running a TV ad or a radio spot or putting up signage. There is nothing you can do online that's going to drive direct traffic. If you're looking for more organic traffic, if you're looking to win search, go back and review the information in the search portion of this presentation. And then start adding more content to your website. Start giving search engines more reasons to come back to your website. If your referral traffic is low, check listings of your company and your website in directories. Consider partnering with other companies and creating cross promotions from their website to yours. If you're not getting enough traffic from social media, well, get social. And if your email is not delivering enough traffic to your website, number one, you want to create or expand your email list. And number two, you want to start looking at what kind of information you're putting in your email and start tweaking your content. And if all else fails, consider some paid advertising. You also want to look at page views. If your page views and your pages per session if your page per session are less than 2, that means people are coming, but they're only looking at one page and they're leaving. Start focusing on calls to action. Start focusing on internal links. Connecting your content so there is a logical next step. If your page views are down, that means you're not giving people logical next steps. On a minimum, you want at least 2 pages for every visit. If you want to improve your page views, make sure that you have a mobile responsive design. Check your page load speed and make sure the site is loading properly. Look for clear calls to action and tell people where they're supposed to go next. Simplify the navigation. Give them fewer choices on each page. And this may sound a little counterintuitive, but it's not. There's a lot of research that's been done that shows that the more choices you give people, the less likely they are to actually choose anything. So don't overwhelm them. Add more content, blog posts, video, audio, graphics, infographics, and then connect that content with internal links. More on this topic. Did you enjoy that? Here's this. And get comfortable with this idea. Web tune-ups are a continuous process. Just when you think you have it all perfect, that's when you need to start working on it all over again. So, start today. Pick a portion of your website and start updating. You don't have to completely facelift. You can make small changes. Now, there is a point at which you do need to do an overhaul. And every few years, you're going to have to do that as well. But start with the small changes and then go from there. If you need more help, if you have questions about anything we've talked about in this brief webinar, feel free to give me a call or check out our website.